All right.
Yeah.
All right, here we go for part 2. This is actually part 2 of 2. If you were just seeing this video for the first time, there is a part 1 to this video. We were right at the end of part 1 anyway, and hey, Vlad's music box, I think that the lawnmower that was cutting our yard was kind of like the alarm clock. You know, hey, Vlad's mentioned, hey, you should have an alarm clock to tell you when to look at your phone. I think the lawnmower did that, so maybe it was like some synchronicity, like maybe you thought we should have an alarm clock, and then we got the lawnmower as the alarm clock. I thought that was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, this is part 2 of 2. And if you're just seeing this now, again, we had an introduction that discussed our head-to-head set score from today. I destroyed her, by the way, just because she always calls me out, calling me Sharapova. She calls me Sharapova and her Serena, talking about head-to-head. I only mention this because if you didn't watch the first one, wait a minute, stop. Because if you don't see the first one, and this is the only video you see, and you've seen them before, and we talked about our set score, and I at least don't get some props for my win, which was a 6-1 today on every video, at least until the next set comes, and I'm going to win that one too.
Look.
What?
Doesn't he look like Sharapova? He's got the long legs, skinny. I'm Serena. I'm like, that's Sharapova.
But you're only like 3'7".
I'm only 5'5". I mean, she's almost 6 feet. But you're like Sharapova, 6'1", and long and lengthy, and I'm muscular. So, hey, Sharapova, Serena.
So look, that's not going to be back on the agenda because you already saw the trash talk in the first one. I just had to mention it in case you only see this one and not those prior to this one. I deserve the win because
you
I
deserve
really
the
destroyed
win.
her.
Moving
And
on.
look, just a minute. By the way, when the last video was interrupted, or not interrupted, it needed to be interrupted. But when the last video ended, we walked into the racket stringing room and I hit stop, or I stopped it finally. Can I? Let me go ahead and tell you what she said after that. Okay, I told her, I said, Carla, you're never gonna beat me again. Never. You'll never beat me again.
He said that last time.
Are you serious?
You said that when you strung your racket, you're never going to beat me with this racket. And I did.
So while we waited for the noise to abate, she starts drilling me in the kitchen. She like grabbed me and was like, "What?"
I did not grab you.
Well, not in a bad way. I mean, she was being fun, but she was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean, huh? You said this the last time." She got all.
He's not. I'm telling you, tomorrow if we play.
Oh, we're playing.
I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna remember what you said today.
She said that yesterday.
No, I didn't. I'm gonna remember what you said today, and when we go to the court, there is no mercy tomorrow.
Yeah, right. I heard that today.
None.
And if she got Delta 6-1.
None. You're coming into the net a lot.
I'm not coming in there anytime. I destroyed you from the base. Well, actually, I started the volley a lot, but I missed my.
You're coming into the net tomorrow.
I missed my
You'll
one.
learn your lesson.
Whatever. All right, glasses back.
There you go.
So I had to put that in there because she deserved, after calling me Sharapova, to have at least 2 videos in a row, part 1, 2, where we talk about this.
See, Sharapova has to celebrate her victories over Serena because they're far.
Now you're looking up Sharapova celebrations?
No, I just know that's how she must feel. That's what she wrote that whole book. How she made her cry. She saw her crying in the locker room. Right. Now I know how Serena feels.
She got destroyed. Let's just let her deal with that. And tomorrow's another day. We'll see what happens.
Tomorrow is another day.
All right, so we left off the last video where we had Z Ivankova that had a lot of great statistics. She read those statistics off. We as the video ended, we're just finishing those statistics, right?
Right.
So check out those statistics from the last video. There's a lot of topics. Actually, we're going to start a little something new, and I had projected to talk about that in part 1. We have some topics that we want to discuss and see what you think about those topics. So, not speeding through viewer comments, and we're going to always...
No, I mean, he has a whole list of statistics, so, I mean, pretty much I said everything, but you can see the percentages that he has.
Thank you. And I feel like we have some pretty decent topics to talk about, whether they apply to you and your locations. Maybe so, maybe not, and maybe if they don't apply to you where you are geographically, maybe you have ideas of how we can deal with it where we are. So, just towards the latter part of the viewer comments, this was the 10th person that commented. So again, there's been a whole lot of comments within these comments, but I'm trying to make sure everyone that makes a comment gets, kind of a shout out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the next comment that came in was from Weenam Chia, which he or she has commented.
I think it's a he.
So he has commented a lot, and he let the comment out of the bag, quote unquote. He is a Nadal fan. Furthermore, that gives Carla a lot of brownie points.
One. Woohoo!
So just a shout out to Weenam Chia. Again, I kind of like a lot of players. I guess if I had to choose one, I would go with Roger. But at the end of the day, I like Djokovic a lot, and I like Coric a lot. I really like Coric, Borna Coric. I will get into that on another video another day, but I really hope that Borna Coric does well. And that's a whole other personal thing for me. I see a lot of him and myself, a lot of frustration and a lot of fight. And again, that's another story for another day. Not that I've ever read anything about that in him, but when I look at his eyes, when I see Borna Coric play, I see a young man that's anxious to attack. I just do. But that's another story for another day. I definitely think Coric is better than Thiem. She likes Thiem a lot. I don't.
No, he's not my favorite. I think he's a great player.
She gets into the looks thing. He's so hot.
I don't think Thiem is good. He's a kid. No, Thiem, I just said for Clay. I don't think he's... Okay. I think he'll do better than Severov, in my opinion.
I agree with that,
but he's older. Isn't he a little bit older?
Yeah, I think he's like 23, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think that... No,
23.
I don't... He's not one of my favorites.
But I like Coric a lot, and hopefully Coric does well at the U.S. Open. He will be on my team. I don't care what the draws look like, who he plays. I'm definitely taking Coric. Another story for another day. But Wynam Chia, big shout out to you because she loves Nadal, and you're the only person in this group that's came out and said, I'm a Nadal fan, let's go. Unfortunately for me, I like them all. I guess number one would be Roger, 2 Djokovic, and there's a lot of veteran players on tour. I like Lopez a lot, Feliciano, and that's another discussion for another day as well. Anyway, so good job, Weenam, for not being scared to say, in this group of dominated by Djokovic fans, which I'm one of those, but nonetheless, that you were a Nadal fan with Carla.
Awesome.
Takes fight to go up against her, man. Takes struggle. All right, so a big comment for me, and again, I'm so sorry to get up, Vlad, but I have to check to make sure the wind hasn't knocked the camera out, and it has not. So we have, drum roll, we have a new viewer.
A new viewer, yes.
And I hope I pronounced this right. Kaya, which kind of, there's a Bob Marley song, Kaya, or album. But Kaya, Kiya, Sama, S-A-M-A. Alert, guys, alert, guys. We have now a female viewer.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. I was feeling lonely here being the only female. Like, everyone's male that comments.
Let's go. And I think Carla was going to read her comment because she came out and brought it.
I'll read the whole thing.
She's going to read the whole thing. All right, here we go.
She said, hello. Stumbled across your channel a couple of days ago while looking for Wimbledon videos and haven't looked back since. I think you both are a wonderful couple with a great family and bring a refreshing new look on post-pre-match commentary that's sorely lacking. So keep up the good work. Second, I'm a female, so yay for the loan. Although I'm sure I'm not the only one. Different viewer from the rest. Third, I'm a big tennis fan. Don't play, only did so in high school because of PE credits, but that's about it. But I enjoy the sport since Pete Sampras walked onto my television screen all those years. I love his style and play and everything else about him. While he got a bad rep for being boring and not charismatic enough like Agassi, I appreciated what he brought to the sport and celebrated when he got his 14th and final Grand Slam to break the record, before a certain Federer shattered all of that. Long story short, with Sampras retiring, I was looking for the next player to root for. I went for Safin, another brilliant player who had so much potential. Remember that shell-lacking of Sampras at the US Open final? But didn't quite live up to it. So I settled for this scrawny-looking, amusing kid from an unknown country, back then at least, Serbia, with interest. Not only did we have a fascinating game, his story was inspiring. With all your talk about Djokovic's popularity and how brash he behaves, etc., many solid points have already been noted, but I'll add my 2 cents anyway. Simply put Novak in the spoiler, the villain, the bad guy to the good guys. He interrupted the love story between Federer and Nadal. That marketing argument comes in play there. And the West has run away with the story ever since. No matter how good or great he becomes, he'll always be that unfortunate narrative attached to his name. See Ivan Lendo? Where people see arrogance and brashness with his celebrations, I see a man who roars in triumph over all the obstacles he had to face in the sport, including the subtle simmering prejudice regarding his country of birth. Personally, I want that roar again, louder than ever. It's the fire that keeps him going and let us know that he really cares about the sport. If he became too politically correct, hoping everyone, he is who he is, and those of us who want to follow him all those years are more than aware of the wonderful man, humanitarian, and funny, charismatic individual he is even off the court. Okay, now I have to return to watching the rest of the video. You both got me commenting on YouTube videos for the first time in my life, so kudos again and keep up the good work. Wow.
Kudos to you, by the
Smart
way,
girl.
Kaya or Kia. Kudos to you. We always try to wrap in some type of comment of the day, and that was going to be thrown into the first show or the first part of this one. So I don't think there's any reason to take away or to further discuss who is going to be the comment holder of the day, and that's going to go to her, Kia-sama or Kaya-sama. That came out as a female fan, out of the box, dropped that type of comment. I think everyone here can give her.
I'm impressed by what she wrote and said.
Let's go.
Obviously, she's very educated.
Let's go. Come on.
Two, she's very knowledgeable in the game of tennis.
Yes.
Man, she kind of won me over with Djokovic.
That's what this is all about. All right.
I mean, she's
Bring
right.
it.
She's right about that. We've talked about Djokovic enough, but she is right. I mean, a lot what she said would be, to me, right.
Exactly.
I can't fight with that.
Well played. Comment of the day. Well played. Much love to that, and good luck with all these guys. See, I don't see her as being kind of the female. I do, but when she's on the court and she's talking tennis, believe me, I see her as like a lion with the mane instead of a lion without one.
Yeah. I'm glad that she doesn't play tennis, she said, ever since high school. She hasn't played tennis since high school. I mean,
at least she's involved.
At least she watches it, she's involved, and she knows more than what most junior tennis players know about tennis.
Exactly. Let's go. Keep up the good work. A big shout out to Stimpy, by the way, who came in just at the end of the comments and commented on Navratilova. Navratilova, for myself, as well as her, are one of our top tennis players ever. Again, I think the greatest tennis player ever, or best athlete ever in tennis is Serena, but my favorite tennis player is Steffi Graf, with the second being Navratilova. Third, I guess you could say Serena, and there's Sabatini and a lot more, and Justine Henin. Don't forget about Justine Henin. Justine Henin is up there. So there's the list goes on. But Stimpy had a comment on Navratilova speaking about Djokovic. You want to mention that?
Well, I'm going to just say bits and pieces.
And then the topic's coming up, so we got to go.
Yeah, he said Martina Navratilova column, the standard or Novak. He says Djokovic is not like Federer or Nadal. That's what Martina says. She praises him for his 13 Grand Slam and describes Djokovic's legacy in tennis and compared him to the current legends of the game. He's a true great champion. She admitted that he has a hard time to come across with the crowd because he's not like Mr. Perfect in Roger, Federer, and Nadal. But what he does in the court is nothing really compared to them. So, I mean, basically he's just telling us how Navratilova thinks that he'll win a lot more Grand Slams.
Yeah, and I think coming from someone such as Martina, that if she leaves a comment like that, I think we should all, and I think that we all now at this point would agree with that. That he's got a heck of a resume, Djokovic. We're looking forward to the U.S. Open. And Stimpy's comment, great job. And again, we're going to use this U.S. Open, and we're going to regain traction in the whole Djokovic, is he the greatest of all time? Like, how is he in that equation? We're going to revamp that when the U.S. Open starts. All right, so we're going to get into topics, and again, I'm sorry to have to get up, but I have to check this camera. So we have about 14 minutes. So I wanted to start a little something new, and this is some topics, and these may not affect you, or you may not understand them. I think a lot of them you will, and maybe some not. So I'm going to jump right into it. So I'm going to bring up some topics. Comment below, and if you have any ideas about these topics that we talk about when we're driving or when we're not doing this, these are some of the topics that we talk about with our kids or between ourselves right here. So number one, and this isn't in any order of importance. I just throwing the first one out. I think this would be actually last of importance on our list, but The first one is the equal prize money for women. And we have talked about this at length. And yes, we think there should be equal prize money in women. And again, I'll give you the hashtags on it, or the outline. The women don't get any marketing. How can you justify not paying them as much? The women get no coverage. How can you justify paying them as much? That's not what I'm going to mention here. Recently, we have had to quell or deal with women having sideline coaching at tennis tournaments. So if our whole argument is for having equal prize money and so forth, forget about it. In this sense, throw the marketing out, throw the coverage out, throw everything out. We have now got this, in my opinion, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but we have this absurd scene where I've got coaches coming out on courts and talking to their crying tennis players. And it's no offense to a woman. She's a woman. But I can tell you what, if I have 5 kids, 2 of them girls, if I got my daughter crying on the sidelines, oh, she don't want to be here, well, then I'll just make her default, and then we'll go back to the practice court. All that stuff, oh, I don't want to be here, and I'm not going to bring up who anymore, whether it's Osaka or whether it's Serena's coach or the multitudes of other girls that have coaches patting their knees on the sideline. I just don't want to see it. And it's fine if you do or don't, but if one is ever going to try to make the case for equal prize money, and there's all these variables, marketing and all the other BS. I understand that. But get the darn coaching off the sideline. That's just cheesy.
Well, they have it on certain WTA tournaments. First of all, tennis is an individual sport. It's not a team sport. I mean, it's a gladiator versus a gladiator. You have to think for yourself. That's why you train all these hours. That's why you have people you talk to outside of the court. Once you're in there, you have to put all of that together. And if you're losing, well, you got to think for yourself, how can I get out of there? What strategy I need to use? I don't believe in that whole thing. I hate that. It makes the women look weak. It's pathetic. Waters down the sport. And if they're going to do that, then men deserve to make the money they do and the women do not.
Yeah, I want to hear comments on that, and if there's none, then we'll push forward. We won't discuss it again. And look, I think that the majority of the women's gripes about equal prize money is well justified. They get no coverage. They have 0 on a scale to 10 of coverage in terms of what the men have. I understand that. But at the same time, now you're going to want coaching on the sideline. That makes you look worse and not better.
Well, they should look at Billie Jean King. I mean, she fought for them to make more money. Did she have a coach by her side? No, she trained herself.
I don't get it. Okay. All right, moving forward. So here where we live, and we are in southern Alabama, we have a lot of issues with public schools not having any tennis courts anymore, cracks in the courts, no tennis team, no one plays, and so forth. I understand that that's kind of the demise of the game in this area, not necessarily everywhere. I grew up in California. I lived a lot in the Northeast, and you grew up in Florida and New York.
Well, I grew up in New York. We didn't have that issue.
And in Central America. So what I'm trying to bring up here is in southern Alabama, we have private schools, and I won't mention any names because it's not about them specifically. It just happens everywhere here. You have private schools that will go to all the public school areas and recruit all the kids from these public schools to go to their school, give them partial scholarship or help them go there and so forth, which pulls all the tennis players out of those schools respectively and puts them in their private schools. And yes, these kids that normally couldn't afford to go to those private schools now go to those private schools because they can play, let's say, tennis. So what happens is that the public schools no longer have players. They don't. There's no need for a tennis coach. There's no longer a coach, and the courts that they did have become dilapidated, cracked, and messed up. Which personally, Carla and I have gone to a couple of local clubs here recently, and I won't mention any names there, but we've been to a couple. When I was a child, the clubs were up and happening. We drove to one, went down the street, and I used to live nearby there, and they looked like a forest trying to get in there. And then you pull in there, it's a ghost town. And there was another one we went to that I went to as a kid, and there was a pool there and so forth, and pulled up to it, and it looked like a ghost town as well. So is there a correlation between private schools recruiting these kids and pulling these kids out of the public school system, which in essence is the flavor of everything that we do as human beings? Not everyone can afford to go to private schools. Is it right for private schools to go to these schools and recruit out children that cannot go to those private schools and get them to come there and paint them an education for next to free? Now, my children my boys that play for Alma Bryant, I'll mention our high school, we help coach the team. Carla and I assist in coaching the Alma Bryant Hurricanes football team versus the Sharks.
They are.
That's Alba.
Yeah.
So
it's the
so
Hurricanes.
so we helped coach the team. Last year was the first year that both of our boys played on it. We won tournaments, we won matches, and we made it to state. Let's go! So, furthermore, there was multiple private school coaches en route to that came to us. Hey, your boys think about... We don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it.
I think it's sad that
We
they
don't wanna hear
recruit these kids. It's sad. It leaves the public schools helpless with no
Helpless.
team. It's like you have one private school, and I won't name them. They've got players from 1 to 8. They're all solid players. And then they go face these public schools, and they got maybe one player that can play, and everybody else can't hit a tennis ball. I mean, you might as well give them the trophy and say, here you go, you just bought it.
So all I'm trying to get at, and we're going to pass the puck on this subject too, if you have any, I guess you could say, idea of what we are talking about, I can promise you this, that I'm not going to sell myself out to someone that's 40 miles away with my kids having a better chance at doing this or that because they fly under someone else's banner. We are going to continue to fight at the public school in which we are given. We are going to continue to do what we do with our kids on and off the court, and I don't care what happens. For me, that's selling out. And I may be wrong. Oh, well, if you let them go there and they play tennis, they'll get a better education.
It's not just in tennis. It's in every sport you see that.
Well, in every sport. The football, basketball,
baseball, everything.
So you got schools here that are 30 grand or 15 grand a year to send one child to, much less if you have 5. We have 5 children. So we have 5 children at 15 grand a year. Do the math. It's impossible. So how is it fair?
How much is college a year? South Alabama.
I don't recall. I mean, I graduated from there, but I don't know what the current costs are. I'm sorry.
I bet you it's cheaper than that.
It's probably cheaper than college. All I'm getting at is in our immediate geographical surroundings, I'm watching tennis courts. Or factually, and I can go around, drive around, and take pictures. Okay, parking lots where there used to be fence posts or net posts. I'm going to leave it at that. But
well, let me say something.
We're not selling out.
Let me say something, Justin. I played high school tennis in Florida. I played at Parkland, where that whole shooting happened, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Our team was solid. No one went to private school. From number 1 player to number 8 player, we were all solid, make it to state. But we had competition at every public school. It wasn't washed out. Everybody, all the public schools had strong teams because the private schools didn't dominate over there. Maybe it's because of the lack of education here. I don't know. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, the high schools here are not great. Some of them are not.
I will leave it at that. The only thing that I guess I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of really good kids in this area that can't afford to go to private schools. Again, our kids do not, nor can we afford to have them do so. But I don't care who walks up to me. Your boys are good. Your boys are good. We've heard this before. You thought about coming to our school. You want to talk to somebody? I'm good, man. I'm good. I don't need that. I'm not shutting a door or closing a door. But I never had the opportunity before you saw him hit a tennis ball. So in other words, I think I'll continue to do what we're doing. And sometimes, you know what, we don't have a tennis court to play on. There's too much sand on it, or we have to clean it and don't feel like it. And on and on and on. But we get our tennis rackets, and we get our balls, and we get our make-believe nets and buckets and everything, and we put them on the street. And there's videos of us hitting tennis balls on the street in a couple different cities across a couple of different years. Am I wrong?
No.
So anyway, I get passionate about that, but I guess you could say
well, I want to know, do they have this problem in European countries? I don't know. Those of you guys that watch, does that problem happen over there?
Yeah,
is this the same thing? Or?
Yeah, does this happen in Serbia? Does this Rajesh happen in Houston? Does this
UK?
happen, Vlad? Does this happen in Serbia? Does this happen in UK? Kaya, wherever you are, does this happen? Or Kia? I don't know, but it happens here, and unfortunately, it not only happens. By the way, I have this written in here too, and then we're almost done. But this happens at public courts here. There is a multitude of public courts in this area. I want to say 20 plus that right now the nets are destroyed. There's ant piles over your head. The paint's faded, and no one cares. And I understand that because who's going to play it anyway? But and this is a whole other story for another day. But if you're charging $80 a lesson for an hour at a bogus country club where the coach doesn't even care what you're doing and just sits there and I didn't mean to put my finger up there. I just meant that as a metaphor. Basically, in his head, talking on a cell phone, not per se. And even though I've seen some cell phone talking in lessons or in their cart with the and they're feeding balls. Oh, great job, great job. Hour later, parent strokes a check for $80 an hour, and then myself, because I've been in this situation, like, how are you going to take $80 from these people? How are you going to take $80 from these people for coaching that type of lesson for an hour, I'm thinking, and then I get destroyed for that. It's ridiculous, and that's why we have weeds growing on our tennis courts here. So anyway, I'll end the topic there, but no one can be surprised at the game of tennis, at least in this geographical, relatively low on the totem pole area in terms of general wealth, why tennis goes away is because lessons are $80 an hour, and no one grows up in a family where they're going to teach their kids every day. Am I right?
That's true. I mean, you have an easier time playing up north. I know there's a viewer, Philip. I know we had parks everywhere. We could play tennis, in any park. I mean, it was easy to play tennis. Florida, same thing. You've got a lot of parks. I mean, and free. Some of them were free. They didn't charge you.
All right, so we're going to squash that topic. That's something that I get very passionate about, as you probably just realized. But I really don't think that it's fair for...
Could that be why American tennis is...
It has a big thing to do with it, and we can get into that discussion as well. But when there's, we started coaching this Alma Bryant. I'll name the school because we represent it, and we are going to be there next year, and we're going to be here for the next 4 or 5 years. So I can promise somebody one thing. That if you play us next year, I don't care if you win. Now in high school tennis, it's one player match, so it's like a team score. But that's all right. But you're gonna lose some matches. I can promise you that.
And the sad thing is that we can't even fill our roster up.
We can't even fill our roster.
We can't fill our roster up.
So you're supposed to have like 7 girls, 7 boys, and we have like 5 boys and 3 girls.
No, last year we had 4.
Yeah, 4.
4. That's it.
So we go to these tournaments and there's like 8 people against 4. And we can't even
win it.
We can't even win because we automatically default 4 matches. Mm-hmm. But I can promise you one thing: we had some of their 1 and 2 players that went there laughing at all of us. Oh, laughing! Oh man, hey, that's Bryant. They suck. They suck, and they got destroyed. they didn't leave there happy. They were crying. And then as they got later in the season, the private schools won't mention names. The private schools found out that there were some players at Bryant. Let's go. And they started sending their bigger players because they always disrespected them in the first place, and they didn't think there was any need to send their better players. But at state, when some of our players made state, right, we won in the first round and lost in the second, and everybody was crying, they're from Bryant. All they do is catch shrimp and buy La Batterie. and we beat them. Let's go. Represent. Telling you. Anyway, we're going to squash that. Comment about that because that's what we deal with here, and it gets very political, and I don't get involved in politics, but hey, I like the group, and I think everyone can enlighten that.
Yes.
All right, so real quick, wrapping it up, well, we're going to do a quick, I guess, reiteration of how we do our fantasy teams leading up for the U.S. Open. We always pick an 8-player fantasy team where you can have 5 players that are ranked number 1 through 16, or seeded 1 through 16, 2 players that are seeded 17 through 32, and 1 player that is unseeded. Now, you can have as many 17 through 32 players as you want. I guess you could have a total of 7 of them, and as many unseeded players as you want, but the maximum you can have 1 through 16 seeded on men's and women's is 5. The maximum you can have 17 through 32, again, if you have filled up your other slots, is 2, and then 1 unseeded, but again, you can pick as many as you want. Again, these aren't my rules. I do not have any ownership to that.
Well, they can go check it out if they want to play. GrandSlamFantasyTennis.com.
Yeah, GrandSlamFantasyTennis.com. I have no advertisement to that. I mean, we get 20 views. I have respected as a tennis player for many years.
And go to ATP/WTA players.
Yes.
And they can see. I mean, that's the little group. We have a few.
Yeah, so we have a group. Then the group, it's like ATP and WTA for players. Anyway, it's something we've done for a very long time, and there's a lot of people, Milo and Tono and Backhand Pass, a lot of people that watch that do it, and I want to make absolutely sure that there is no correlation between us and that. We have met a lot of good people through that, and there's a lot of really good tennis enthusiasts there that we've talked to for almost a decade now. Again, no shout out to any company or anything like that. We just enjoy it, and we do it every time. So if you want to do it with us, you don't have to go there, but just, hey, come up with the list. We'll talk about it for the next couple of weeks or month until the U.S. Open starts, right?
Right.
All right, so last thing, and then we're going to end. And we're at 29, so we got about...
We got a dog's right here.
Oh, this is Katana. This is our doggy right here. All right, so by the way, I mentioned yesterday, we mentioned that if you want to get in on a racket or tennis racket giveaway, if within 1 week, and the deadline is, our deadline is July the 28th.
You got me for that?
No.
Oh, I got it. Go ahead.
All right. So I will go that way with it.
Come on, Katana.
Okay, she can stay here. All right. So the deadline is July the 28th. If you give us your finals predictions for the men's and the women's side, and you predict the winner, so men's, women's, the finals, who meets who, and who the winner is, we will send you a freshly strung tennis racket of high quality, whether it's a Head Radical or whether it's a Pure Drive or Wilson Blade or whatever it is. We will do that. Now, if there's two winners, it becomes a conundrum. Maybe we'll have to do like a coin toss live or something to figure it out. But I've never even had one winner that way. We have done some racket giveaways before, but it has been for other reasons. So today, by the way, Atlanta started, which is the 250 in Atlanta, and there was a women's tournament in China. I think it was Nanchang that started today. The only matches that I had really even any potential for someone to do anything at the U.S. Open for the men was Karlovic playing Donald Young. Obviously, I think Donald Young is done. We've talked about Donald Young before. Karlovic has a big serve, so, he's kind of like Isner or Anderson. One of those three can go deep if their serve's happening, but then we might get a 62-47 in the fifth set. Had Ryan Harrison playing Duckworth today. No big deal. I'm out. China Open or Nanchang. A couple of solid Chinese players playing today, and I wish the best for them. Unfortunately, besides Nara, I think, was one that we said has some skills, and I think there's a couple more, and I just don't know them too well. But no one, I think, that needs to come into the U.S. Open discussion at this point.
No.
All right, so hardcourt season is beginning. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching, and sorry that Katana here, she's our lovely little doggy here. Everybody calls her a pit bull, but she's really not. She's really just a good girl. But anyway, Katana says bye-bye, and subscribe below. Click a like below. And Katana, thank you for showing up. We think you're a great girl. She got a bath today. Carla helped us out. So anyway, as Carla always says, hey, by the way, click a like below, subscribe below, and as Carla always says,
Adios.
see ya.